Well, first off, I want to start off this video with saying Black Lives Matter. Okay? I mean, I'm going to tell you that, man. I don't have nothing against blacks, man. Not at all. I mean, USA blacks, maybe somebody else from another country that's trying to kill us. But I want to make sure, too, I actually have the flag in the right position. The star is pointing up. And, I want to put this out because, first off, there's been so much dirt smeared at this flag, like, it means hate and all that. It don't mean hate. I'll just give it a quick rundown and say basically the X is off the cross of St. Andrew. It was taken from the Scottish flag, which today it's a blue background with a white X, which is a cross of St. Andrew. He was crucified on a cross like an X because he wasn't worthy of being crucified like Jesus on a regular crucifixion cross, right? And there was 13 stars because there was 13 states that revolted against the North. Actually, I didn't know that till recently because I couldn't figure out what the 13th, I was coming up with 11, but there was Arizona territory and there was Indian territory, were the last two, the 12 and 13, and Indian territory was like where present-day Oklahoma is. And of course, the red, white, and blue was taken from the traditional USA flag, which everybody was American in the South. Now, I want to bring up this subject, another twist on something. Actually, it was my 3 greats uncle or 4 greats uncle had a slave, and he was against the war with the North. Which that's kind of interesting because he says most everybody in the South was couldn't stand what the Yankees were doing and stuff. I looked at. I know there's various reasons why there was the war between the North and the South, but mostly it was over taxes. That issue was brewing since 1828 with the tariff of abominations. That was the initial tariff against cotton was in 1828. Then they lowered it. Then they increased the hell out of it in 1860 with the election of Abe Lincoln. They increased it 250%, and the South split. They said the hell with it. The South was trying to preserve slavery because that's money. They always think of it that way. But you know what? The Northerners are a bunch of damn hypocrites. First off, Abe Lincoln was also stating that the blacks were inferior to the whites. Abe Lincoln himself with his Emancipation Proclamation. Now, actually, this video is probably going to be more a smear on whites, except for my 3 greats uncle. But it's going to be more a smear on whites in general, and all the BS hypocrisy of like, yeah, you're a racist, no, you're a racist. Yeah, like, yeah, right, get the hell out of here. Because, I got people online accusing me of being a racist and saying, now I'm going to go date a freaking blonde, blue-eyed chick. I said, well, wait a minute. You're going to date a blonde, blue-eyed female? What do you mean? You got to stick with your own race. What do you got to make sure your blood's pure? Is that what the deal is? Anyway, hypocrisy again. But, the thing is, Abe Lincoln, he wanted to ship all the slaves off America because they figured, they weren't going to get along or something like that, or whatever the hell he was thinking. He did not free any slaves till 1863, 2 years after the war started. That was another thing. It was basically a game whereby, it's almost like, why do we bomb a place or why do we attack someplace? Well, it's to free those people. It's because those people are being oppressed. We're going to stop that. It's over money. And what they were really trying to do is they had a problem with, first off, there was a lot of Western movement. There was Western movement that was going on due to the gold rush in the 1840s, and that petered out. That caused a depression in land values and the mortgages that the bank held on land values. It caused a petering out of people going westward, and the railroad stocks, equities started falling in value. And it turned into the Panic of 1857, and they tried to get some liquidity into their accounts, and the way they did that way back when was they shipped gold. So no electronic funds transfer back then. So they shipped gold on a steamship called the USS Central America, which was a U.S. ship. It had 30,000 pounds of gold. It sunk in a North Carolina hurricane. They didn't even find it until I think 2013 or 2014. And there's a lot of disputes over that gold even today. And so, like Wall Street and the North in general was basically having a lot of economic hardship And as usual, their game was to tax the South. And they did this. They did this initially, even in 1828, when they taxed the South with, the tariff of abominations to protect the Northern interest. Actually, half the slaves that came into the United States from Africa were from ships out of Rhode Island, and it was one white guy up in Rhode Island, was like the second richest guy, a Northerner. He made all his money off of slavery. So, actually, like I said, this video is probably going to be more slam on whites than, between the North and the South, because I'm getting tired of these Northerners freaking saying, I'm a Northerner originally, I live in the South, but it's like, what are they talking about? Like, the South revolted over slavery? No, they didn't. Yeah, there was the plantation guys on the top. They wanted to keep the slavery because they wanted the money rolling in, because that labor was free. But then, if you look at the General Ulysses Grant, which was under Abe Lincoln, General Ulysses Grant had slave labor too, and he liked the pay accommodations, no pay. That's how people are, man. People are screwed up. Actually, anybody will do this if they can get away with it practically. Almost anybody will do it. If it's legal, they would probably do it. I think actually any guy would say, well, if I could buy a woman and own her, no matter what kind she is, whatever, they probably would, I mean, it's, don't let anybody freaking fool you. But then again, when they have this institution of slavery, even in the South, it doesn't necessarily mean people were treated like crap. It could be, or it might not be. I know in the case of my 3 greats or 4 greats uncle, he actually, the reason I knew he had a slave was because, I don't want to put the name where it was, but I read this whole big story. His slave, actually, his former slave, went to bat for him, trying to get back his stuff that was taken from him, from my 3-4 greats uncle, when they had Sherman's March to the Sea in South Carolina. And they took, the Union Army took his 2 horses, like the officer came in and goes, where's that fine mare of yours? He takes the horse, and he took his cart, and he took everything he had, like for provisions and food and bacon and all that kind of stuff, and the black guy that was, the slave, whatever, I don't even know if he was like considered, I mean, technically he was a slave, but I don't think he was like a slave, like in interpersonal relationships, the way it was, because I think a lot of people in the South depends on who they were. The institution was there, but that didn't mean like the person didn't get treated with respect. That's what I think really happened, because the guy that was the former slave, he actually wrote testimony. He gave testimony, and he said he wasn't anywhere financially associated with my 3 or 4 greats uncle anymore, and he said that this is what happened. Yeah. But here's the thing that really got me. I says, well, wait a minute. Wasn't a union coming down there supposedly to free the slaves? Well, how come they didn't take my 3 greats uncle's slave with them and give him a gun and start shooting the freaking Southerners? Or helping them out with the Union Army and, hey, you're free, you can come with us. No. He stayed with my 3 greats uncle, man. You know what I mean? So, I mean, like, I don't know. Something ain't adding up really there. Something isn't adding up. No matter how you slice it. So, and my 3, that one was, the one that had the slave was the guy that was against the war with the North. So go figure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the history's like one way. Like they try to tell you, oh yeah, we did this and we did that. Oh yeah, we were all morally righteous and shit. And you know what? The more they tell me this flag's racist, and I know that's a lie. That's a complete and total lie. But if it ever came to where the pendulum swung the other way, and they said this flag was the greatest flag that ever was, if you say one thing against it, you are a hater, and you're just wrong, and you're just, despicable. I'm not going to care about it then, if the pendulum swings the other way too far. But right now, I realize that, the people that fought behind this flag, they were not, like, thinking, like, oh, I got to keep my slaves. No, they weren't thinking that. They were thinking about how the North was coming down on them with the usual garbage with, let's tax the crap out of the North. Out of the South, and give all the money to the North. which is what they've always been doing. They protected the northern textile industries with the tariff of abominations in 1828. They finally relaxed those tariffs a little bit over the years and kind of mended things with the North and South, because in 1828 the South almost broke with the North back over that. And that was back when the North was bringing in slaves from Africa. And actually, the slave institution was the ships that were going over to Africa to pick up the slaves, and gather them up, where all the people were dying on these ships, were coming from the North. So basically, this is slamming white people, because they're all freaking bunch of hypocrites. That's really what's coming down to. I mean, what the hell can I tell you, man? The more they're freaking point fingers at each other, you're all telling me they're all freaking full of shit. I'm white too, whatever. I don't know. I'm just looking at it from like another angle, and being that I was raised up in the North, and I wasn't really taught like from the beginning about the South was right. I definitely wasn't taught that way from the beginning. I just figured it out after a while. Like everything there is, it's always over money. It's like if the Chinese decided to bomb the crap out of us today, and I'm going to bring something up about that too again here real quick. I'm going to try to be brief on this. If the Chinese decided to bomb the crap out of us today, and they said, it's to free us from the capitalists in Wall Street, and we fought the Chinese, all those people that don't have nothing to do with Wall Street, and we're getting screwed over by Wall Street too, we'd be labeled like, we were the guys against the good cause because the Chinese were trying to bomb us, And then if you look today, where's slavery today? Slavery is rampant in China itself, in the Lao guy with the political prisoners. But how many people, I don't care if they're black, white, Latino, Asian, even if they're from China, how many people go into stores and buy stuff made in China that's probably made in the Lao guy from political prisoners with slave labor? And they don't think nothing about it. Of course, it costs $2 less. Loads of people doing that. And loads of people that are politically correct talking about, the South was evil. Get the hell out of here, man. I mean, most of the people in the South that fought in the Army, whatever the hell it was, in the Southern Confederacy Army, they didn't own any slaves. The guy that was my 3 greats uncle or 4 greats uncle that had a slave, he didn't fight on the Confederacy. And the Confederates were pissed off at him because he didn't want to fight against it. I think I know why, too, because he had he had a big family, and most of his kids were daughters and stuff, and if he got killed, they would have to fend for themselves, and I don't know, maybe that had something to do with it, too, I don't know. But, I look at it like this, a lot of times, even when people say, the person, they had the white master and the black slave, I don't think the personal relationship between the two was always like, you better do this, because, a lot of things you could think of are like that where, it depends on the person. It depends on how the person is in their heart. Everybody that was a white person back then, I think, was pretty much a staunch Christian. Now, that I'm sure that helped with, how the treatment of people would be. But then again, I don't know. There's a lot of shit that went on. But then again, even so, if you look at some of the blacks that were freed, they owned slaves. There were some of them that had, not that many. There was a lot of half blacks, though. Quite a few, not a lot, but there was quite a few half blacks, half black, half white that owned slaves, and they did the same thing. As the whites, they owned slaves. So it's not like so damn cut and dry. And the fact that Abraham Lincoln did not free any slaves in the states that he had control over, that tells you a lot. He used the Emancipation Proclamation executive order, because why did he use an executive order with the Emancipation Proclamation? Here's another thing. This is another thing nobody's mentioning. You know why? Because he probably couldn't get the votes in the Congress and the Senate to abolish slavery in the South only, which is what he did, only in the South. He didn't abolish slavery in Delaware. Delaware was one of the last states to get rid of slavery. It had slavery at the end of the war. Ulysses S. Grant had slaves. He said he liked the cost of labor. What a wonderful guy. That's Abe Lincoln's general. So they're all full of shit. But, it's not just the whites are full of shit. The blacks are full of shit, too. Because they do the same thing if they got the opportunity. Everybody knows it's wrong, though. you know. But if they're getting an economic benefit from it, a lot of times people don't give a shit. And you know what the evidence is? Look at people buying stuff made in Laogai slave camps made in China, and people going into China Mart, Walmart, and buying up the stuff, whether it's electronics and stuff and all. It includes whites and blacks, you know, all this electronic stuff. Man, they buy it like nothing, right? So, just want to put this out here because it's not that damn clear cut. And, you know, the more people want to argue about this shit, actually what it's doing is it's actually the more the white people up north try to freaking argue about, oh, we were morally right, the more they're going to freaking argue against white people in general. Because what it's coming out to is all these people are freaking a bunch of damn hypocrites. That's what it's coming down to. Reality. You can take that to the bank. And I want to tell you one thing for you, any black people listen to this. I don't know if there's any black people listen to this. Because I got a Confederate flag up here. You're like, oh, I ain't going to watch that shit. But if you happen to listen with this far, I'm going to tell you one health tip for black people. It's actually for all people. But, you know, one thing, you know, if you got white skin, right, there's one thing you got an advantage of besides the other normal things that people think of. Sunlight will produce more vitamin D. It's a health tip, you know, it's not an economic tip. More vitamin D in white people's skin faster than if you got the more melanin or you have in your skin. It takes you many more hours to produce the same amount of vitamin D. So a lot of people that are black are way short on vitamin D. And vitamin D is not just a vitamin, it's a hormone. It's a hormone that protects any cells in your body. If they're bad, it'll repair them. If they can't be repaired, it'll tell them to destroy it. It'll give instructions to destroy that cell. It's a hormone. It helps repair old injuries. You should also, if you take a lot of vitamin D, you know, take it in conjunction with K2. But, you know, since a lot of black people avoid the sun because they don't want to get darker, some people are like that, right? You know, how many shades of darker you are. You know what? A lot of people are way short on vitamin D. And vitamin D is something that can save your life. Big time. Big time. And none of these doctors are telling you that. But if you take a lot of vitamin D, make sure you take vitamin K2 with it because they work together. It's very important because if you get too much calcium synthesis, what will happen is it'll go to your hearts and veins and it'll screw up your heart and veins and stuff and maybe give you a heart attack. But if you take it with K2, a little bit of K2, you don't need too much. Cottage cheese has K2 in it. You take that every day, you might be all right. Or you can take K2 in a pill form, but cottage cheese even has it. So I want to kind of diverge on that a little bit because that's one thing that's getting me with these doctors, man. It's like, you got Obamacare and healthcare. You know, God, you know what? You know, they Obama making it sound like he's helping the black people, man. That guy ain't figured out they're going to have $965 in taxes due in a fee if you don't have health insurance. And guess what? That doesn't give you health insurance. You just got to pay $965. A lot of that stuff hasn't really caught up with people yet, and it will. We're going to figure out later. It's Obama did them in. Obama sold you down the river, man. He's a non-USA black. He's a Kenyan black. He's got lineage going all the way back to Muslim slave traders and Muslim slave owners. Right? So I want to throw some curveballs out here. I want to give you some stuff that's like you never heard of before. I don't know how popular this video is or what. Fine, whatever. I mean, but what I'm telling you is the truth, man. You know, the Southern cause was where they really went to war over was taxes. And yeah, the guys on the top did want to protect their institutions of slavery, but the presidential election of 1860 was not about slavery in the South. It was about slavery in the Western states. And Abe Lincoln didn't issue any proclamation as soon as the war started. It happened. He did it in 1863. The war started in 1861. Now, what does that tell you, right? And like, you know, the example is with my 3 or 4 greats uncle when Sherman's troops came in and took his 2 only horses and his only cart and all his stuff he had. He wasn't like a rich guy or nothing. He didn't have a lot of money. You know, how come they didn't take you know, the guy that was his slave with him and say, "Oh, you're free. You're coming with us." No, they didn't do that, right? That they were freeing the slaves. No, let's go back there with your master or something. That's what they said. Those are the white people from the north freeing the slaves. So what does that tell you, right? What does that tell you? And you know, if you want to think of me as, yeah, I'm part Confederate, whatever. Yeah, I'm part Confederate. I'm part Italian too, right? So what the hell, man? And you know, I got a lot of different stuff. I mean, a lot of different stuff from like Europe. Anyway, and you know, that's all I gotta say, man. Because a lot of stuff isn't that cut and dry, and that's just how it is. And remember, everybody, remember that vitamin D tip. Because actually, myself, right now, I'm taking a whole slew of vitamin D, and myself. Now, I'm not telling you to do this because the doctors will say that's too much, but there's other doctors say otherwise. But I realize that since if a black person, if they're not taking vitamin D like through food, it takes, I think it's literally like 10 times as much sunlight to produce the same amount of vitamin D through the skin as a white person. You know? That's how it is. So I would imagine, you know, there's a lot of people, black people, that are very short on that, and it's causing them a number of health problems. And, you know, you're still going to pay the $965 for not having health insurance because that's the law with Obamacare. That guy's a sellout. He's a Mr. Uncle Tom sellout all the way. Anyway, I don't even know if this video is going to be advertiser friendly or not, because usually when I get too politically incorrect on here, and you know, I slam everybody, man. I slam it from all the way around. I mean, I don't care. I mean, that's the way it is. I'm not going to disagree with Black Lives Matter. I mean, I know it's funded by George Soros to create hate and dissent. But, you know, as far as the title goes, yeah, of course Black Lives Matter. White lives matter. Everybody else's lives matter. That's the way it is. And cats' lives matter, too. I like cats. So, anyway, that's all I got to say. Over and out.